Hey everybody, this is Sparklestorm and welcome to the Seven Continents Zoo. Thanks so much for clicking my video. Today we will be meeting our second animal from Asia, the red panda. And this is going in right across from the Japanese macaque. The red panda is a climber, so it needs more than 6.5 feet of climb-proof fencing. And since I don't want to have this huge fence along this pathway, I'm digging a trench instead. And I'm using this 2-meter beam to make sure that it will be deep enough. For this habitat, I want the ground to be sloped up towards the back so guests can have a good view of the animals from the path. So I'm just doing a little terraforming here. It's kind of funny that we're only on the second habitat and I'm already veering away from my original plan to have viewing areas jut off the main path. So for this habitat, the main path is actually going to be the viewing area. For the trench, I want to make a retaining wall out of concrete, so I'm getting 2 concrete panels lined up and topping them with this metal piece. And then once I get them lined up properly, I'm just duplicating them down the length of the trench. Then I'm going to use the terrain tool to fill in the back and bring the ground level to the top of the wall. But this causes some of the ground to pop through the wall, so I just have to grab the push tool and erase that ground that popped through. I want to fill in the gap between the path and the trench with flowers, so I'm just laying down some mulch here. And a good tip for this process is to start with the end that is the axis point of rotation. And then when you duplicate it, slide it down, and it's easy to line the edge up with your last piece, and then just rotate it to line it up with the edge of the path. If that makes any sense, the way I explained it. For the hard shelter, I'm using the same East Asia brick wall and East Asia timber as I did for the Japanese macaque, because I want there to be some consistency between the habitats in each of the continent areas of the zoo. However, I do also want there to be a little more visual interest to this building since it's at the back of the habitat and will be viewed by the guests. So I'm adding in some dry stone wall gable pieces to the walls as well. For the roof, I'm going to do something similar to the macaque viewing area with the beams and timber. So here I'm getting the beam length set before duplicating it. Then to space them out, I just kind of eyeball it, which means that I am, again, adjusting each one individually just slightly so that they are at least appear evenly spaced. And for adding the timber, I also place each piece individually. I'm not sure why, because I could have selected a few and copied them, but who knows why I do things the way I do. I love the color of this timber piece and the grain in the wood. I just think it is so pretty. Since this habitat needs a climb-proof wall that is more than 6.6 feet tall, and I am not about to build another rock wall at this point, I am putting in a concrete barrier all the way around. And in the end, actually, I raised this barrier even higher just to block sight lines to the habitat behind it, just to keep the focus on this red panda habitat when we're on this side. Then across from the concrete retaining wall, I want to build a rock retaining wall, which, yes, technically is a rock wall, but I figure it won't be as challenging as a giant rock wall, and so I give it a try. And I actually really like the way that it turned out, so maybe I redeem myself a little bit. For this one, I got a little bit smarter and made one section that I liked and then just duplicated it down. So if you haven't seen my Japanese macaque video, I work on the rock wall at the back of the structure for a very long time. I probably restarted it half a dozen times, and in the end I deleted 90% of what I built and put in some flat sheets of rock instead. So the rock walls have been giving me a pretty hard time. So I was hesitant to do anything like that in this habitat, but since this was such a small space and it was not really the focal point of the habitat for the guests to be looking at, it's kind of going to be down a little bit out of their line of sight, I thought I would give it a try. And I really actually like the way that it turned out. I thought about filling this trench with water, but I did a little research and I learned that the red panda can swim, so it would kind of defeat the purpose of building the entire trench in the first place. So we just left it as is, although in real life I would be a little bit worried about the panda falling into this trench, since there's nothing there to keep them in their habitat, but in the game it does not seem to be an issue. In the middle of the habitat, I want a big rock pile that the pandas can climb on. And I've never built for this animal before, so I don't know if the pandas are going to be able to climb these rocks. So I'm just making the jumps between the levels really small and hoping that they're going to be able to climb it. Now's probably a good time for some facts about the red panda. So there's only about 10,000 in the wild, and they are considered endangered, mainly due to deforestation. They are known as the firefox. They are actually more closely related to raccoons, weasels, and skunks than the giant panda, which totally makes sense if you look at their characteristics. But they share the same name because of their feeding habits, both eating lots of bamboo. The name panda is believed to come from a Nepali word, ponya, meaning bamboo eater or bamboo-footed. They also have thumb-like appendages that they use for grabbing and stripping bamboo. These little animals are arboreal animals living in densely bamboo-covered areas of the Himalayas and other mountainous areas of East Asia. And they are nocturnal, being most active from twilight to the early morning. In the game, they seem content to live with a mate, and they'll tolerate a couple of little ones as well, but in the wild, they are solitary. Their super fluffy tails actually help them to balance when they are walking along rock ledges and tree branches, and these little guys actually love snow, so I could add snow to this habitat as well. So like with the Japanese macaque, I wasn't sure if they were going to be able to climb the rock wall, so I am adding some climbable habitat items to this habitat as well, just to make sure that the red pandas are going to be able to climb all over these structures. Looking back on this, I probably should have added in some platforms as well, but I think I was hoping that the rock pile would be sufficient to kind of act as platforms for the red pandas to walk around. I'm adding some Himalayan pine and Scots pine, which is one of my favorite trees in the game, to the back of the habitat here to fill in some of that space, give it a backdrop that looks very foresty. Just realized though that I have not put any bamboo in yet, and considering that is a staple in their diet, I probably should add some. Although I guess if I put bamboo in their habitat, they would just eat it anyway, so maybe I should save bamboo for their feeding tray. Alright, it's finally time to add some pandas to the habitat. So just picking one male and one female and adding them in. And as I place the habitat sign, which I've just copied over from the Japanese macaque, all of a sudden mayhem breaks out and I realize that one of the pandas has escaped. So just watch the highlighted one in the bottom left corner. It jumps from the rock wall, over the trench, over the gardens, over the fence, all the way to the path. So clearly I need to make my trench a little bit wider. So it's been a little bit of time since I did the voiceover for the speed build part of the video, and I have made a few changes that I had actually mentioned earlier that I wasn't going to do, but I did go ahead and put water in the trench, and I think that It just looks so much prettier and so much more lush to have the water there and all of the water plants. And even though in real life the panda could easily jump into this water and swim across and escape, in the game this slope is too steep for them to access the water. So it works in the game. And the other thing that I did was I did add some bamboo to the habitat. So even though they would likely eat these plants, and I'm not sure how quickly they would replenish in real life, I just thought it needed some bamboo. They are red pandas after all. So I also made the platform, the feeding platform, raised a little bit on these posts, on these beams, and I really like the way that ended up looking. And I did find that the pandas had a hard time accessing some of the climbing areas, the rocks that I had wanted them to climb on, so I did add a few more climbable habitat pieces to the habitat, and some platforms here for them to access the feeding platform. I also added some of the lanterns from the Japanese macaque habitat, as well as I do have that little lattice piece over here as well, supporting the roof of their hard shelter, and some more lattice on the back concrete barrier as well. And then I made them a little watering fountain. I just added some beams to their watering fountain and a stone bowl. Let me show you what this is. The East Asia water shrine, and some East Asia unpainted timber, and just a piece of a primitive circle there for the plate at the tap. And I think that just really looks a lot better than the plain fountain. So inside we have a little one sleeping. There is nothing fancy about their hard shelter. I did not spend any time building up the backstage for the red panda. So they've just got some bedding back here, and an access panel, an access door for the back of their water fountain for the pipes, and the keeper door, again, just kind of propped open so the keeper can access the habitat. So for our education sign, I've copied over the sign from the Japanese macaque build and just replaced the screen with our red panda. So all of our Asian habitats will have this same sign, as well as this pathway, just to differentiate it from the rest of the park, so that you know you are in the Asian continent. We do have over here as well some more education, some information about deforestation for the red panda, and a donation box. So again, it's just got these East Asia baskets with some flipped around upside down, and the top again that kind of acts like a swivel when the money goes in the top and it flips around. It keeps it all safe in there. So that's it for the tour part of this video. I will leave you now with a few cinematic shots. Thank you so much for watching, and if you are going to continue on this journey with me, up next will be the African watering hole. Bye for now.